Jien, Jon Mallia, ma nafx xejn fuq l-Unjoni Ewropea.
Nilqakom għat-tielet jum tagħna ġewwa Brussell fejn se nesplora l-istorja tal-Unjoni Ewropea x'kienet.
Fascism was in every European country. There was political parties that had extreme views in every European country. Neither country would have enough access to the coal and steel needed to make armaments. So this is the birth of the EU.
U l-ġejjieni x'jista' jkun. L-ewwel post fejn se tibda l-esplorazzjoni tagħna llum jissejjaħ The House of European History.
So we just put our stuff in the lockers. What's the name of the place? Because I always muck it up.
No problem. This is the House of European History. My name is William Parker. I work as a press officer for the communications team, and I'm going to show you around this museum today.
This way, that way, which way do we go? That way. Did you always have a passion for this?
I think it's a worthwhile project, particularly for young people, to think about the challenges that have been overcome. People say, what date do you start in the museum? We start with the myth of Ewropea. So Ewropea was a princess who was abducted by Zeus in the form of a bull.
Typical.
Happens all the time, right? And he escapes across the continent of Europe with this princess Ewropea. A brother, Cadmus, goes to rescue her. Now, Cadmus and Ewropea are Phoenician. A lot of people say it could be Iraq, it could be Lebanon, but that's where they were from. And they had the Phoenician alphabet. And the myth goes that Cadmus took the Phoenician alphabet with him across Europe, which is why many European countries have the same type of alphabet.
Did he save her or what?
The end of the story?
Yes.
I don't know. What we talk about here is that the frontiers or the boundaries of the continent of Europe have never been fixed. They are always in flux, and the countries that are considered part of Europe have shifted as well. Final introductory part is about European heritage. And what does that mean? What are the aspects from all the countries that link us together? Philosophy, democracy, and religion. So we took artifacts from the different European countries which reflect something that happened or connects all of them. And then underneath, where you can't see, because you have to discover it, is the modern example. So for democracy, what you'll see is a picture of a woman trying to vote. So you can see democracy from Athens 2,000 something years ago, but in fact women only got the vote in the 1970s in some European countries.
Dal-mużew jissottolinja s-suċċessi varji tal-Ewropa imma mhux mingħajr ma jfakkarna min ħallas il-kont.
This is the Great Expo from Paris, I believe 1899. And again, you're going to see two sides. On the left is all the technology that's happening in Europe. On the other hand, you have the colonialism and you have the countries that are funding this. And they're funding it through their natural resources. Their resources are being stolen. And there's a land grab by the European powers. The European powers would take gold or diamonds from the local inhabitants and swap them for coloured beads. And then when the locals realised they'd been ripped off, the Europeans used a machine gun to
tear them down.
We're in the 1800s, it's industrialization, and Europe is the most advanced place in the world. Has the leading technology, the biggest wealth. Different countries are starting to assert themselves. They're making constitutions. Now this leads to two groups in a way. You have the bourgeoisie on the right, with the businesses, with the money, rising middle class. But on the left, you have the proletariat, the workers. So there's this tension between the two.
This is where Marx gets his idea of like...
You should work here, because we have Marx's manifesto down here. So all this tension from the different European countries, grabbing resources, trying to take over the world in a way, it exploded with the start of World War I. The first one that civilians were massively killed through the industrialization of war products, of ammunition. So we can see that all the industrial technology was now being used to create missiles and weapons.
It's an insane time to see that immense firepower and all of these innovative ways in which we can kill each other en masse.
Must have been terrifying. After the war, new countries sprung up. There's a reconfiguring. Also in the colonies as well, we can see some of these countries which had been owned by European powers. The losing European powers had to give up the countries they owned.
The first time I sat down for a European history lesson and the teacher was explaining to me things like Prussia, things like Austro-German Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, he'd be proud. It just blew my mind. I just thought that the world was just always set this way and how ephemeral these things actually are. Something that is difficult, I think, for the human mind to kind of wrap itself around. it because we want certainties.
So where are we now?
Yeah.
We're in World War II, and we're in the absolute chaos and destruction brought by the Stalinists and the National Socialists in Germany. The idea of fascism was in every European country. There was political parties that were fascist that had extreme views in every European country.
I would just like to make one point, probably haven't talked to the camera the whole documentary, but if you're seeing this flickering everywhere, it's just the light is what it is. We would be failing view if we had decided to remove this part, because this is such a beautiful and important part of our history. William here is doing a fantastic job. You're just gonna have to wear sunglasses. We're gonna keep this all in, because it's really good.
In the 1930s and 40s, there were multiple dictators. I know we've got Stalin and Hitler. Different European countries are dealing with dictatorship, and in every country there's collaborators and there's resistance. Every country is dealing with these forces of dictatorship, of war. These are people that were put in concentration camps, propaganda posters, basically, in public space.
Join the Nazis and fight the
evil Bolsheviks.
Yeah.
This is from the underground education system in Poland. When the Nazis invaded, the normal system of education was outlawed. People had to go to underground universities. And when you graduated, you got this certificate. They had to hide it. So you got it in a matchbox.
Right, anyways. Dak inti meta tigradwa flok tuk ċertifikat, diploma twaħlu mal-ħajt tuk kaxxa tas-suffarini. Għax ma tistax turija, tifhem? Daw tant kienu ħobbu għall-iskola li kienu jmorru anka jekk ħajoqtluhom. While
This section is about the Holocaust. These numbers are just to get an idea of how many people died, that you can't really count it. It becomes such a huge number, and each one is a story actually of a survivor.
the European project is one of great sense of human accomplishment, but also one of great sadness at the same time.
It's a peace project. There was huge sadness after what happened in World War I and II, and it's about making sure that doesn't happen again.
We must all turn our backs upon the horrors of the past. If Europe were once united, there would be no limit to the happiness, to the prosperity and the glory.
After World War II, you have the rise of two new superpowers, the Americans with the capitalist model on the left, and the Soviets with the communist or state socialist model on the right. And trapped in the middle is Europe and European countries. So each one of these pillars shows integration by European countries. They realized we need to get together, otherwise we're going to be very small. It's going to be very difficult to stand up to either power. So there were some ideas. First one was for a common currency. This is called the ducat. So this is a forerunner to the euro. It was just an idea. They designed it like 60, 70 years ago. A Dutch designer came up with it, but working for a European federation before there was a European federation. This is the plan that actually took off.
Things take time, guys. Things take time.
This is the Schuman plan, but it was actually devised by Jon Mallia, sharing coal and steel. Jon Mallia, who we'll see in a sec, came up with the idea. He was a businessman, basically. He had a cognac organization, but he had a lot of trade experience, and he had this idea that if Germany, France, and maybe other countries shared coal and steel, it would prevent World War III.
Mela, ħanerġgħu niġu lura għall-mużew u għal-William ftit iktar tard, però qabel sa nikser kantuniera li għall-bidu se tidher mhux posta. Imma li b'sorpriża anke lija se twassal biex l-istorja tal-Unjoni tiżewwa bi ftit maġija u misteru.
Well, my name is Ronald de Bruin. I'm heading an intergovernmental organization to promote research. COST is an acronym that stands for European Cooperation in Science and Technology. It was founded in 1971 by ambassadors of European countries that came together, as a matter of fact, in this building here. European Council of Ministers and the European Council of the Heads of State, and they had the illuminous idea to let scientists come together to form a network to advance science. Today, COST is an organization that has 41 countries that are members. We are funded by the European Commission's budget. The European Commission headquarters, as a matter of fact, is just across from the Council building and the so-called Berlaymont building. It used to be an old convent named after the Count of Berlaymont and his wife actually helped establishing a convent. So with that budget, today we talk about 55 million euros on an annual basis. We fund networks of scientists to come together for forming a network done bottom up. So we have networks, looking at social sciences, and we have networks going for hard quantum. It's absolutely clear that we need science and innovation to solve the big societal problems. Also to make sure that the competitive advantage of Europe is increased. Last but not least, that we are not so much dependent on other countries' knowledge in innovation in order to be a little bit more autonomous and not necessarily dependent on what comes from other parts of the world. We are here very close to the Schuman roundabout.
Schuman, roundabout, il-mistoqsija saqsejta l-Alex il-bieraħ.
Schuman roundabout, Schuman round point.
Fejt tifa' fuq roundabout.
Ronald kien sejtini tweġiba li assolutament xej ma kont qed nistenna.
This roundabout is named after Robert Schuman, who was a French statesman, and he was one of the founding fathers of the European Union. He, with the intellectual help also of others, I should mention Jon Mallia, his right hand, he came up with the idea to propose an intertwining of coal and steel industries of Germany and France, but also that of the Netherlands and Belgium and Italy. So there would be a collaboration that was so essential and productive that going to war would not make sense. There was clearly a notion, never again war, never again hunger. So that's why it's quite appropriate that we stand here with, on the one hand, the headquarters of the European Council, and right opposite you have the European Commission. The street here, running right through this European quarter. It's called Rue de la Loi, or Street of the Law. So it's really the political, legislative nexus, not only of Brussels, but in a way also of Europe. This is the bust of Robert Schuman, French Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time. Schuman held a very important speech on the 9th of May 1950, where he promoted the idea of working together to create peace, which was then converted into a legal text that was eventually signed on the 18th of April 1951 in Paris. Sometimes it's called also the Paris Treaty.
L'Europe n'a pas été faite, nous avons eu la guerre. L'Europe ne se fera pas d'un coup, ni dans une construction d'ensemble. Elle se fera par des réalisations concrètes, créant d'abord une solidarité de fait.
Now, part of my curiosity led me to look at the position of this statue a little bit from a different angle. And you could actually say that Mr. Schuman is looking straight into the direction of the Rue de la Loi, the Law Street. One day I was looking at the alignment of the bust with the Rue de la Loi. I could prove by taking pictures that the sun sets in extension of the Rue de la Loi, exactly in line on the date of 18th of April. It's the day of the signing. This European quarter was already built and created in the 1830s. Option number one is it's pure coincidence, which could very well be the case, that they put his bust here. And it just happens to be, by coincidence, that the sun sets exactly an extension of this street on the same date that this treaty was signed. Alternative theory could be that someone observed that the sun is setting on the 18th of April and decided to put the bust exactly on this place. And I have no proof of either theory. That's why I say it is theories. But in any case, I think it's a wonderful coincidence and solar alignment, let's say, here in the European quarters.
Mela, nipparkjaw dik il-kurzita mal-ġemp u mmorru lura li l-mużew. U fil-waqt l-Unjoni kienet tissib saqajja ma jfissirx li l-problemi ntemmew hemmhekk.
We're getting into the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War here, and there's two systems. Here you have Khrushchev and Nixon arguing about which system is best.
They're debating?
They're debating it, and this was an impromptu debate. This wasn't scheduled. They were at a conference on built prefab houses, and suddenly in one of these model houses, they've got into an argument about which model is better. Khrushchev is saying, we build it once, it lasts forever, the citizen is happy. Nixon is saying that's not going to work for your economy. You need to keep making it new, making it better. So you can see the tension between these two superpowers. And here we show it again. During this rebuilding process, you can see on the left and the right, both the systems at work. Right. State socialism and capitalism. Sometimes it's hard to actually tell when you're looking at these which one's state socialist, which one's capitalist. What the young people are doing with the tablets is doing an online activity which shows the good and bad aspects of both models.
So this floor here is mainly about kind of the rise of these two massive powers and how Europe had to rethink her position in between these two competing ideas and competing economies and competing
Had to learn
visions.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Right.
And also come together, communicate and compromise and share resources. So things are advancing, and again, these are issues that a country by itself cannot handle. So nuclear technology, for example, how does one country deal with the threat of nuclear war? You can't deal with that by yourself.
Really interesting idea. We have to wrap up soon. My heart hurts. It's 10 now. Okay.
So nothing stopped at the border of a single country. But that's in the West. In the East, they still have state socialism. On the face of it, it looks great. You have the pioneers, you have parades, you have the cult of personality like Ceausescu. But the reality is you have secret police. This is one of the kits they use to disguise themselves. You have censorship of ideas. So people had to publish things underground. In the end, state socialism crumbled. It happened very quickly in these different countries, but differently. In some of the countries, it was calm and peaceful, like in Czechoslovakia. They just came out and shook their keys. Whereas in other countries like Romania and Bulgaria, there was a lot of bloodshed and death. What do you get when you join the EU? What does that involve? This object in the middle, from the 1990s, that's all the EU law that was relevant in the 1990s. Today, it would be much longer, in fact.
Wir werden für unser Europa weiterhin viel Überzeugungsarbeit leisten müssen.
For us, leaving the European Union is now indeed a liberation.
U l-mixja tal-Ewropa s-soktat mill-Premju Nobel għal-Paċi għal-waqt tal-ħajta Berlin għall-inklużjoni ta' dejjem aktar stati fiħdana għal-Bataclan, għal-Charlie Hebdo, għal-Brexit, għal-Covid, għall-Ukrajina. Il-mixja tal-Ewropa tis-sokta.
From an aesthetic standpoint, the European Union as itself is just very clinical and sober, almost kind of not to rile up any emotion in us.
Do you want to sit down?
Do we have time to sit down? No. Or not? We have to wrap up. Okay.
Do you want to walk down? We can walk down and talk. I can answer your question. When you talk about the European Union, and I do this as well, many people do it, they make it sound like it's some other body, some other people. The European Union is made up of people from the member states.
Sure,
Maltese
yes.
people, French people, and they work with the national countries.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
So it involves a compromise between all of them before something can come out. That's why it may not seen as too bold or taking these too big steps, because there has to be compromise between the 27 different countries. You see all these challenges are facing Europe. How are we supposed to respond to them?
Right.
That is what we want to ask people coming here. You know, people have a chance to vote if they're happy or not. You have European elections coming up to vote for the European Parliament.
Qed jorbet mim ta' din is-sensiela qasira minn Brussell, tallimt ħafna, u jkolli ngħid l-apprezzamenti għal din l-Unjoni Ewropea żdied. Qabel ma żarmajt però inżilt sal-pjazza ta' faċċata tal-Parlament fejn kien hemm grupp ta' żgħażagħ miġbura jixorbu jiċċaċraw. Rid insir naf din il-ġenerazzjoni li jmiss. X'taħseb dwar l-Unjoni?
I like it. It's a great project. It gives us a lot of freedom.
Cohesion, drinking together from different nationalities in the street, being friends, no wars, avoiding conflict.
Not many people on the planet can enjoy this because we have 27 countries we can move to.
X'inhi l-opinjoni tiegħek fuq l-Unjoni Ewropea?
Kaos assolutament, imma fl-aħħar mill-aħħar wara kollox jaħdem u jagħmel ġid.
L-Ewropa inti għandek tħossok Ewropea x'inti dak li inti at the end of the day inti we're all similar, we have similar issues, tant aħna tant aħna integrati fit-teknoloġija, fil-problemi tal-ambjent, ma tistax tkun waħdek, kieku maħniex fil-imkien qed niġġieldu ma' xulxin.
When I say European Union, what are your thoughts?
I mean, if we're all friends like right now, it could be a very bright future. If we start spreading like lies and fake news, we could go back to what it was 100 years ago or 80 years ago.
Id-demokrazija ħajkollha dan l-eżami.
Huwa moment importanti rridu naraw li il-leaders tagħna ikollhom f'moħħhom iktar l-interess tal-poplu mhux tagħhom personali. Speċjalment ġiex gwerer bażikament fuq xtutna, huwa importanti li inħarsu lejn il-well-being tan-nies li huma direttament involuti fil-gwerer imma anke in ġenerali tal-Unjoni.
I
lived the European idea by being able to study abroad, to have my Erasmus, to meet so many cool people from all around Europe, to be able to travel freely.
Id-demokrazija mhijiex ħaġa li nista' naħduha for granted. Naħdmu fuqha u nalimentawha il-ħin kollu. Jekk le huwa faċli ħafna li mmorru lura.
Never ever before have people on this continent enjoyed so much long-lasting peace.
Fejn se toħodna d-demokrazija?
Fejn ħejħdu għan-nies. Nispera li jieħduha fid-direzzjoni tajba illi dak li għandna ma nitilfuhx.
It's a project that I want to contribute to. I think more and more people, from my bubble at least, they really identify as being European.
I wish the parliament or the people's decisions or political opinions would have a more of an impact, more citizen participation in general. Yeah.
What do you hope that the European Union will give you?
A stable future, to be honest.
I don't know the goal of this documentary for the Maltese people, but Europe is cool, and that's all I can say.
Din kien espedizzjoni li esponetni għal storja u kultura li jien ewrit ma xejn ma naħseb dwarha. Għall-istituzzjoni li tippermja ħafna minn ħajti ma ftit li xejn ikkunsidra. L-Unjoni Ewropea, proġett ta' paċi, prosperità u tama. U li issa naf dwarha ftit iktar milli minn meta feġġejt fi Brussell. Nittama li jekk bqajt miegħi sawwek, intallimt xi ħaġa miegħi ukoll.